Good afternoon and welcome to EAS Consulting Group's webinar on the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program presented by EAS Independent Advisor for Import Operations, Dominic Veneziano. EAS specializes in FDA regulatory matters with a prime focus of assisting domestic and foreign food, pharmaceutical, dietary supplement, medical device, cosmetic, and tobacco firms comply with applicable laws and regulations. EAS is staffed with former FDA compliance and inspection officials and industry executives and is assisted by an extensive network of consultants with many years of FDA and industry experience. Today's presenter is Dominic Veneziano. Mr. Veneziano is a veteran FDA specialist with over 24 years of agency experience. He served as director of the FDA's Division of Import Operations for more than 10 years. And in that role, he was responsible for oversight of FDA's Import Operations Program and provided leadership, guidance, and direction to approximately 1,000 field investigators in more than 320 U.S. ports of entry. He also served as a co-lead in the development of FSMA import regulations and was the senior advisor on the Implementation Act. As a reminder, during the webinar, you may ask any questions by typing them into the questions box. And with that, I will say thank you again for joining us, and I'll turn the presentation over to Dominic.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone, or good morning, depending upon where you are. I'm going to go through the slides. There we go. Just a little bit about me, as you mentioned. I was responsible for the director of FDA's import operations for approximately 10 years, and I did write the foreign supply verification program as one of the co-leads, as well as developed the foreign supply verification program, which we're going to go over today. So I want to thank you, and we'll talk a little bit about how the voluntary program fits into the Big 7 rules. So if you know something about the foreign supply verification program or the accredited program, we'll talk a little bit about how the 7 FSMA rules all play a part in terms of the voluntary program. We'll go over what VQIP actually does, what the benefits are, making sure that you're eligible in terms of it, and then how to position your company to be selected for the program. So one of the important things that I found is, before you submit an application, do you meet the requirements? Is it worth your investment? All businesses look for the return of investment, or the ROI, and you should think about that before you make the decision to apply for a program. And then we'll talk a little bit about what happens after the application is submitted. We'll also talk about other government agencies in terms of how a voluntary program works with other agencies such as APHIS or EPA or any of the other foreign agencies or government agencies. So a little bit first about the Big 7. Obviously, the current good manufacturing practices for humans and animals, the foreign supply verification program, that's one of the big ones, as well as the accreditation of third-party auditors. There's the standards for growing, harvesting, and packaging, which is the produce safety rule, and the sanitary transportation rule, as well as the focused mitigation strategies to protect food against international adulteration. Looking at the foreign supply verification program, that, along with the accreditation of third party and the focused mitigation strategies, are the most impacted by VQIP. You're going to have to be participate in all of them, but looking at all 7, they all play a role in terms of being accepted into the program. And the reason why I say that is because they all link to each other. So as you know, as part of the foreign supply verification program, you have to ensure that your products are being manufactured in accordance with, they're not adulterated, and they're being manufactured in accordance to the preventive controls regulations, which is the preventive controls for human foods, and or the preventive controls for animals. FSVP is one of those things that the agency is going to look at in terms of your participation in VQIP. So you're going to have to ensure that the suppliers that bring in people, the companies that are manufacturing, are in compliance with those two regulations, whether it be the food preventive controls for foods or preventive controls is the big animal in the game. In order to participate in VQIP, and we'll go over this a lot more, but in order to participate, the foreign supplier has to be accredited by a third-party auditor in accordance with these regulations. And we'll talk a little bit about the current status of VQIP, but this is the main reason why the program hasn't actually started yet. Same thing with the produce safety rule. As part of the voluntary FSVP, you have to ensure that if it's a farm or someone is responsible for produce safety, that they are in compliance with those regulations as well as sanitary transportation. The mitigation strategies to protect food against intentional adulteration, that's one of the elements that you're going to have to provide information on as it relates to the food defense aspect of VQIP. And we'll talk a little bit about the CTPAT, or Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism, and how those play a role. And if you are CTPAT certified, what part of the food defense aspect of it don't you have to submit to the agency? So what's the status of VQIP? The notice of availability was published back in June of 2015, and the final guidance document was issued in November of 2016. Let me say, if you haven't read that document, it's a very good document. It covers everything that I'm going to go through. It explains how to submit the application, what the requirements are. It's a very good document that the agency has put together and provides you with pretty much self-explanatory in terms of how to go through that process of submitting an application and working through it and what the benefits are. There's an informal fee that was supposed to be established back in August of 2017. This never happened. The agency, the attorneys within the agency said that they shouldn't do it. When I was there and we were planning this out, the goal was to give the industry an idea of what the cost may be. And we knew that it would be about $15,000 to $20,000, but we were going to narrow it down so people had an idea and could submit an application January of that following year. So January 2018, they'd have an idea of what that cost could be, make a better informed decision on whether they wanted to participate in that program and pay that user fee. A formal fee is still expected to come out August 1st of this year. Now, with the delay in the implementation of this program, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But either way, if one does come out, it'll be pretty much an estimated cost because of the fact of in August of 2019, they have to publish a new user fee. So I'm not sure if they're actually going to publish one in August of this year, but August is right around the corner. We'll see what happens and what the agency decides moving forward. Either way, a user fee is going to have to be published in August of 2019. The anticipated first application was supposed to be in January 1st, 2018. That was delayed until January 31st. Again, they realized in 2017, late 2017, that they didn't have anybody to do the audits under the third-party program. And as a result of that, it was going to get delayed. They did approve a couple of benefit period was supposed to be October 1st of 2018. However, it has moved now to October 1st of 2019, with first applications, again, being submitted probably in between January and May of 2019. So the program itself, FDA was required to establish a program to provide for an expedited review of food imported by voluntary participants. It was very similar to the CTPAT program by Customs. And Congress wanted us to look at that program, or look at and work with Customs and Border Protection to determine how to build a program. And that's exactly what we did. We worked with Customs and Border Protection. I worked with the industry while I was there. I was one of the links between FDA and CBP. So I heard from the industry what they liked about CT-PAT and what they didn't like about CT-PAT and what they liked in a voluntary program. And we tried to build this program that would be beneficial to the industry as well as beneficial to the agency and overall to help utilize our resources. And that's one of the big things. Congress also told us it had to be user fee based. It had to pay for itself. So the employees to review the applications, to do the inspection of a VQIP participant would have to come out of the fee-based program. To build the application system, it's a little bit of a catch-22 because of the fact of we couldn't hire anyone or couldn't build anything until we had the money to do so. So it was kind of lost. We didn't wait for that, obviously, because nobody has to pay the fee until before October 1st of 2019. So we built the systems and we're training people, but we still haven't recouped any money associated with the program itself. We're going to have to backfill, or the agency will backfill based upon those user fees that are recouped. It linked it to FSMA's third-party certification program, as I talked about, and that's what the delay was. FDA issued the final guidance in November 2016. Again, a very good document, one I encourage you all to read if you're interested in participating in the program. Eligibility is limited to importers who demonstrate a high level of control over the safety and security of their supply chains. It's all about the safety and security of the process, of the entire supply chain, knowing where your product's coming from, knowing that it's in compliance, and knowing that it's going to be imported without any issues associated with security. That's one of the reasons why we linked this to Customs and Border Protection, CT-PAT, and food defense associated with it. So it's a very good program for people that are kind of the best of the best in terms of their supply chains. The definition of the VQIP importer is different than that of the Foreign Supply Verification Program definition of an importer. Under VQIP, an importer is defined as the person that brings food or causes food to be brought from a foreign country into the customs territory of the United States. This can include manufacturers, consignees, importer of records for humans or animals. It doesn't. It can be somebody outside of the United States, which is a lot different than the FSVP importer. And it may be the FSVP importer. The importer of record oftentimes is located outside of the United States, and as a result, they can participate in this program. They do not have to be within the United States in order to participate in the program. I would say if you look at all of the requirements and what's needed to participate in the program and to develop a quality assurance program, which we'll talk about a little later, it may be easier for the FSVP importer to do it than the importer of record. The importer of record would be tough unless they're one and the same, just because of the type of information that's needed and putting it all together for the application itself. So what are the benefits associated with this? Obviously, expedited entry into the United States for all food included in the approved VQIP application. Number one benefit, your products are not going to get stopped if they come across. It's a huge benefit to the industry. It's a huge benefit to your customers, because they know the product isn't going to be delayed. They know that, and they can have confidence that it's going to be shipped and go right through and be to them in a timely fashion. It's also a benefit to the agency, because the agency can focus on those higher risk products, those that we don't have confidence on, those that we haven't looked at in terms of FSVP, or looking at making sure that the supply chain is secure and that the products being imported are safe. The second benefit is the examination. So if FDA does do an examination or samples of products, meaning that if there's an outbreak that's ongoing, the agency may have to collect samples to determine what the cause of that outbreak is. they may also be doing an assignment where they want to see what potential health risks are associated with different types of products. And if that's the case, again, they'll do everything they can not to select from people that are part of the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program, and they'll select from other companies. But they may need to, in terms of a statistical rationale, collect a sample for a fall cause basis. If that is done, then it'll be done at destination. So the VQIP importer can tell the agency, we don't want it to be stopped at the port of entry. We want it to move to destination, and we want you to come out to that destination and collect a sample, rather than having that product re-delivered to the port of entry and then FDA collecting the sample there. It's a huge benefit to the industry because it saves on demurrage costs, and it can go right to the location. If we do collect a sample, again, FDA has to go out and collect a sample of that product for a fall cause reason. It's going to get expedited through the laboratory. The IT systems that we built in terms of working with the Voluntary Qualified Importer informs the laboratory that this shipment or this sample that's been collected has been collected from a participant of the program, and they should take precedent over any other shipments that come in. And the IT systems will focus that, and that way the laboratories know that that one has to be done first. It has, again, a quicker time frame moving forward. The other thing that the agency is looking at is if they do a domestic import rather than in the import status, meaning that it has been released and it's been sampled and tested. So it's technically it's not waiting for it to come into the country. It's already into the country after it's been collected, which is a major issue in terms of, again, going through that release process. It's already been released. It's just being sampled to gather information or to see if it's part of an outbreak. The other, I think, is a tremendous benefit of the program is a help desk, a 24/7 help desk where importers can call FDA and get advice on submitting the application, find out what's wrong with an application. If they're part of the program, they can call the help desk and ask them why a shipment, whether it's from FDA or another agency, why it's being held up. And the employees within FDA at this help desk will reach out to the other agencies and try to figure out why it's being detained, why it's being held up, and if possible, how do they help expedite that process of getting it released into the country. So they will assist you in many ways, whether it's the application process or whether it's a delay of a shipment, but they'll be there to help you and go through that process. One of the other things that they're going to do is that if you wish, they will publicize that you're part of this VQIP program. Now, some companies don't want to be publicized in terms of being notified or being informed that they're part of this program, but that option is up to the importer. FDA is willing, and they will put a list out of all the participants that are part of the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program. And finally, the last benefit that I think is there is the fact that if we do collect a sample and it is violative, and you have to export it, the process normally is that that product has to be exported from the port of entry. So you'd have to bring that product back to the port of entry and have it exported. We'll work with you, and we'll try to work with CBP to have it exported at that location. Some of the other benefits, obviously, expedited entry incentivizes importers to adopt a robust system of supply chain management that helps the agency have more confidence in those companies. It allows FDA to focus its resources on food entries that pose a higher risk to public health, as I spoke about earlier. It provides predictability when products will arrive. Again, another benefit for you in the industry to work with your customers and promote this. And it saves money on storage charges. Again, and it helps to get customers by participating in the program. We talked a little bit about the benefits period itself, when it's going to start. VQIP was expected to start October 1st of 2018. That has been delayed again till October 1st of 2019. So FY 2020 is when it will start. Applications were accepted between January 31st through May 31st, but you were going to have to resubmit an application. Again, they're anticipating 200 applications will be accepted between January 1st and May 31st of 2019. If you had submitted an application, it does get stored in the system for 2 years. So that's one of the benefits of, again, the application process will open up January 1st of 2019. VQIP benefits will begin October 1st, following acceptance into the program, and will last through September 30th of the following year. VQIP participants and user fees is required each year. So before October 1st of 2019, if you're going to participate in the program and you've been accepted under the review process, you have to pay your user fee before October 1st in order to get the benefits. FDA must consider the risk of the food to be imported based upon factors such as the compliance history of the foreign supplier and the food safety practices of the importer. That is the process that the FDA reviewers are going to use to determine whether an application is acceptable. But they will also be looking at other things. We talked about the Foreign Supply Verification Program. They'll be looking at the FSVP importer to see that they're in compliance with the regulations with Section 805. They'll be looking at the importer of record to make sure that they have a history of bringing in products that are in compliance and not adulterated or misbranded. And they'll also be looking at the compliance history of maybe of the consignee, where that product's going and how it's being manufactured for the public. So they'll be taking a look at kind of the supply chain itself and see if there's any red flags that could prevent someone from actually being accepted into the program. Let's talk a little bit about the eligibility criteria. Again, I spoke about early on saying you should be, as a company, be aware of what the criteria are in order to participate, in making sure that you should do that. I have done, as a consultant, have done many reviews for companies that are looking to, they should submit an application or not. There's nothing worse than probably getting an application or submitting an application and then having the agency tell you that, sorry, you don't qualify for the program, or you have to remove a supplier or two because they don't qualify. So how do you do this? First of all, you need a quality assurance program. We'll talk a little bit about what's contained within the quality assurance program, but in layman's terms, it's pretty much a program that identifies how you're going to ensure that the products that are being imported into the United States are in compliance with the regulations, and if there were an issue, how you get those products back into compliance. You have to have an assurance of compliance with the supplier verification. So we talked a little bit about FSVP, but not only FSVP. So if you're responsible, if you want to bring in seafood or fish products as part of the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program, you're going to have to ensure that the supplier verifications under the HACCP program are met, as well as the Foreign Supply Verification Program. So depending upon the product you're bringing in, you need to make sure that you're in compliance with those regulations. Current facility certification, including farms, issued under FDA's accredited third-party certification regulations for each foreign supplier of food in the application, in the VQIP application. So again, this is the big program. Every foreign supplier, whether it's a farm or whether it's a manufacturer, they have to be accredited under this third-party program. You, as the VQIP importer or the foreign supplier themselves, can request from the accrediting body or certifying body that they want an inspection, and they'll go through the inspection process, and they'll ensure that that product that's and is in compliance, and the facility is in compliance with regulations. You have to have a 3-year history of importing goods into the United States. The agency wants to make sure that you know how to import products, and 3 years is just kind of the standard number of years or standard number to show that there's a consistency of bringing products into the United States. You can't have any ongoing administrative or judicial action. No import alerts associated with the product or the supplier or yourself. Can't have any injunctions. No recalls associated with those products. Other history of non-compliance with food safety regulations in that 3-year period or ongoing. We'll also take a look at violations with other agencies. So if there's an issue with Customs and Border Protection, a liquidated damage case that you've been involved with, we'll take a look at it and determine whether it might be related to food safety. And if it is, that may prevent you from participating in the program. So looking at the quality assurance program itself, these are the major points associated with it. You need a corporate quality policy statement. We want to know that from the top level of your agency that they support food safety. And that all starts from the top down. Do you have the funds to implement all of the changes that's necessary? Will you make the commitment to pull a product or not use a foreign supplier if you find out that there's problems associated with that? Those decisions usually come or stem from the top, and we want to make sure that that's the capability of the corporate policy across the board. Organizational structure and individual responsibility. The agency wants to know who's handling these responsibilities, ensuring that products are in compliance. What policies and procedures do you control issue? Do you have that in place to ensure that temperature abuse isn't taking effect, whether that's in transportation or during storage? Compliance with supplier verification. We talked about that already, the FSVP and the HACCP rules. Certification under third-party certification program. Communication of information about potential health hazards to FDA and others. So do you have a procedure that's going to inform FDA of a potential problem? It's at times you don't want to communicate to FDA. This program says we're aware. We are going to notify you if there's an issue. We're not going to be silent on it. We're here to protect public health as well. Corrective actions to address food and foreign supply non-compliance. Do you have a procedure on how you're going to handle any non-compliance issues? The agency has said that there will be, and there probably will be, times where there's non-compliance. Every good system can't be 100% foolproof in terms of issues. So when there are issues that arise, do you have a corrective action plan that's going to bring that product back into compliance or address the issue? And one of the reasons I said early on, the FSVP program is, the importer is probably best suited is because this is all part of the FSVP program. Making sure that products are in compliance, making sure that the supplier is in compliance, making sure that that somebody has a recall plan in place so that products can be removed from the market if necessary, making sure you have a corrective action in place as well. So a lot of that work under that program has already been done. Food defense system to protect against intentional adulteration. Does the manufacturer ensure that they have all the necessary requirements to prevent a food issue from the inside, to prevent employees from intentionally contaminating the product? And this goes back to the CTPAT program, whereas if you're part of the CTPAT program at either the Tier 2 and Tier 3 level, and you inform us of that, you don't have to provide information related to transportation under the food defense intentional adulteration regulations. We want to know about experience and training requirements for employees responsible for implementing the quality assurance program. For people that are doing the work and that are implementing this, are they trained? Do they have the experience in education in order to ensure that products are going to be safe and effective, as well as not being adulterated or misbranded when they get imported into the country? Written procedures for establishing and maintaining records related to the structure and implementation of the quality assurance program. So we want to make sure that you don't use outdated documents, that if you make a change, if you make a corrective action, that there's document control and that all of the employees are trained appropriately based upon those changes, and that any corrective actions are done effectively. So you need a procedure in order to maintain the records and make sure of document control, and that the appropriate documents are updated when appropriate. The VQuip application, they have a nice procedure in terms of how to go through this process. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on going through it, but it's divided into sections A through G. It includes the application and the firm information, the foreign supply verification program, and HACCP control points. So if there's a seafood, that would fall into the HACCP requirements. If it's a food product, other than one of the exemptions under FSC supply verification program. You have to provide documentation related to your quality assurance program that we just went over. You also have to talk about your filer and your broker. We want to know that the filer and the broker isn't part of, has passed their filer evaluation, that they're not providing bad data to the agency for an entry. We want to make sure that they're in good standards. The foreign supplier facility and the foods. Obviously, we want to know who that foreign supplier is, and making sure that they're certified under the 808, the third-party certification program. There's a section on comments, summary, and again, you're going to have to sign that everything is truthful in that application. Moving over to now the investment part of it. Is it good for a company, and what the VQuip compliance strategy is? So one of the things you should look at is, how often do we get our products examined? What's the customer's demand, and how quickly do they want the product? What are the storage costs that a company has paid over the past year, and whether the product is perishable or not? So these are some of the things that you need to look at and determine whether if the return of investment is worth it for you. You next need to determine whether your company is eligible. We talked about the eligibility. You need to go through and determine whether you should submit an application, or your suppliers. Have they been part of an import alert? Are they currently on an import alert? What are the products they manufacture? Are they in compliance with the regulations? Do you want to ask them to have an audit done? The agency is going to get some information in terms of that audit as part of this program. And if they're not in compliance, then you're going to have to then you won't be able to participate into the program. Schedule an audit or have a foreign supplier be audited by a certified body. We talked about them. There were actually two companies. I talked about ANAB, and now there's ANSI that's also been approved. Again, there's no certifying bodies that's been approved yet under the program. That's the responsibility of ANAB and ANSI to get them up to speed and get them approved. Review documentation and prepare your application. Make sure it's right. Again, you can have a help desk where people can help you with the process for the application itself, but make sure your documents are in order. Oftentimes, I see when people want to submit the application that the documents are outdated. They don't have the right version controls. There's a lot of errors within that application or within their procedures. Make sure everything is in order before you submit the application. Prepare for an inspection by FDA. Make sure that the FSVP importer is in compliance. If they go out, and one of the things that's going to happen is it's going to trigger an FSVP inspection by FDA. If they come back and they find your FSVP importer is out of compliance, then that product that's being imported is not going to meet that requirement, and will be kicked out of the program itself. So it won't be accepted from that foreign supplier and that FSVP importer. So understand what the compliance status is of the FSVP importer when you submit the application. Just talk a little bit about why FSMA compliance is important. Obviously, not going to go over all of these, but as a result, it could be placed on an import alert. So if your FSVP importer is not in compliance with Section 805, they can end up on an import alert. There's recalls that could happen if you're not in compliance with FSMA. There's refusal of products under 801. You can application or program be revocated, which is the big one under VQuip. You don't want to have, obviously, be be pulled from the program or be suspended from the program. You pay a lot of money to get into it. You'd like to maintain that and maintain, obviously, compliance with all of the supply chain aspect of it. So wanted to talk a little bit about other government agencies and why it was important. One of the things under one government trusted trader program is we've heard a lot from the industry saying that, you know, I participate in Customs CTPAT program, but then our products always get held up by FDA. What this does is we're allowed to share information with Customs and with other agencies like CPSC. And it was in the notice that says we will share this information. And it's important because now those other agencies have confidence that the products that are being manufactured in part of the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program are going to be in compliance with our regulations. And if you're part of CTPAT and you're part of VQIP, your product should sail through both Customs and FDA. And we have, again, screening criteria within FDA and within CBP that can allow that to flow freely. And it allows for better communication between the agencies when we can talk about, yeah, they're part of this program. We have confidence in the products that they're importing, and we don't believe that there's any violations associated with the supply chain. So I think it's a huge benefit in terms of it. There are some agencies that don't believe in the voluntary program. When I was there, I believe EPA is maybe changing their tune a little bit on that, and they may be looking at participating in some of the programs. But the more agencies that have programs, the better it is in terms of getting releases from all of the agencies. And again, if we can just share them saying FDA has confidence in the work that the facility or the importer has done, the further that goes with other agencies. VQIP guidance states that information will be shared with other federal governments. We put that in there on purpose to make sure that people are aware that we're going to share it. That was one of the limitations I had when I was there with getting information from CTPAT and from CBP. They couldn't tell us who was part of the program. We couldn't give them the benefit of being in compliance because we didn't know who was and who was not part of the CTPAT program under confidentiality reasons. Reduce duplicative efforts by agencies such as Food Defense. Talked about CTPAT. If you're part of that program at the Tier 2 or Tier 3, you don't have to provide additional information related to transportation for Food Defense under intentional adulteration provisions. The more trusted trader programs you participate in, the lower your risk and likelihood of products being examined or analyzed. The more you participate in it, the agencies won't look at it, the quicker the product will get released. That covers pretty much all of what I wanted to talk about. We have time. I wanted to open it up to either questions. I don't see any questions, but I will put it back to you, and we can take questions if there are any questions as of right now.
Thanks, Dominic. We'll wait just a couple seconds. If you do have questions, please do type them into the chat box. Okay, I don't see any questions coming in. So Dominic, I want to thank you very much for your presentation on VQIP. Really appreciate your time. If you are in the process of typing a question and we are closing this webinar prior to your ability to send it, please do feel free to reach out and send it to us directly. We can get an answer for you. So thank you very much, everyone in the audience, and thank you, Dominic.